Imagine waking up at 2:41 in the morning to the sound of air raid sirens. Not one siren, not a drill, but every single alarm system across an entire country screaming at once. That is exactly what happened. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through something that has fundamentally changed how every military strategist on the planet thinks about modern warfare. Because what Iran pulled off that night was not just an attack. It was a message. A message written in fire, sent at hypersonic speed, and received by every government, every general, and every defense contractor on Earth. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand why the most advanced missile defense systems money can buy crumbled under the pressure, why the most powerful navy in human history turned its ships around and ran, and what all of this means for the next 10 years of global conflict. This is not speculation. This is the new reality of war. Let us start with the moment it began. At 2:41 a.m. local time, Iran launched approximately 1,800 ballistic missiles in a single coordinated operation targeting Israel. Let that number sink in for a second. 1,800 missiles in one night. For context, during the entire Gulf War in 1991, Iraq launched a total of 88 Scud missiles over the course of weeks. Iran fired more than 20 times that number in under 90 minutes. This was not a retaliation. This was not a warning shot. This was a carefully engineered military operation designed with one goal in mind: to prove that Iran has the power to overwhelm, outpace, and defeat the most sophisticated air defense architecture in the world. The attack was split into 4 distinct waves, each one calculated to break something specific. The first wave of roughly 450 missiles was not really meant to destroy anything. Its purpose was surgical. These older liquid-fueled missiles flew on completely predictable paths, deliberately easy to track, deliberately easy to detect. They forced Israel to light up every radar, activate every battery, and start burning through interceptor stockpiles. By the time Israeli command centers were fully engaged and burning through thousands of interceptors just on Wave 1, Wave 2 was already in the air. Wave 2 is where Iran showed the world what it had been quietly building for 2 decades. Around 750 missiles, these were the most advanced weapons in Iran's arsenal. The Khaybar-Shekan, the Sajil-2, the Ahmad. These are not your grandfather's ballistic missiles. These are solid-fuel, road-mobile rockets that can be launched within minutes of receiving an order. They do not need hours of fueling preparation. They are stored ready to fire, and many of them carried something that air defense engineers genuinely lose sleep over: maneuverable re-entry vehicles. In the final 20 to 30 seconds of flight, as the warhead is screaming downward at speeds that leave almost no reaction time, it can abruptly shift its trajectory. It can dodge. An interceptor missile launched to meet it at a predicted point of impact suddenly finds nothing there. The math that was supposed to guarantee a kill becomes useless. Wave 3, numbering around 400 missiles, went for cities: Tel Aviv, Haifa, power stations, fuel depots, transportation infrastructure. This wave was designed not just to cause physical damage, but to shatter the psychological assumption that Israeli civilians were safe behind their technological shield. And Wave 4, the final 200 missiles, targeted whatever air defense systems were still functioning. By then, many batteries had already gone dark. Here's what makes this attack so historically important. It was not won through superior technology. Iran's missiles, while impressive, are not more technologically advanced than Israel's interceptors. What Iran did was something more devastating. It attacked the math. Every air defense system in the world is built around a ratio: the ratio of incoming threats to available interceptors. Israel's Iron Dome is genuinely extraordinary at what it was designed to do. In low to medium intensity conflicts against rocket fire from Gaza or Lebanon, it has performed better than almost any defense system in history. But it was never designed to face 1,800 missiles in 90 minutes. No system in the world was designed for that, and Iran knew it. The cost asymmetry alone is almost incomprehensible. An Arrow 3 interceptor, the top tier of Israel's defense architecture, costs somewhere between $2 and $4 million per shot. Iran's advanced ballistic missiles cost significantly less. But even the cheaper interceptors, the Iron Dome's Tamir missiles, run about $50,000 to $60,000 each. Iran was spending perhaps $500,000 per offensive missile. Israel was burning millions in defensive interceptors trying to stop each one. Within an hour, Israel had likely spent billions of dollars in defensive munitions, and the stockpiles were running dry in real time. Multiple Iron Dome batteries reported complete depletion of ready missiles before the attack was over. Commanders were forced to make choices that no defense planner ever wants to make. Do you protect the airbase where your F-35s are sitting, or do you cover the population center 10 kilometers away? Do you prioritize the nuclear research facility at Dimona, or do you defend the power grid that keeps half the country's hospitals running? These are not abstract strategic questions. These were real decisions being made in real time by real people watching their systems go red one by one. The damage that night was significant. Nevatim Air Base, home to Israel's most elite F-35 squadrons, was struck. Hangars and support facilities were damaged. Ben Gurion Airport suspended operations. Power outages swept through large sections of central Israel. Fires burned at military fuel and ammunition depots. Israeli officials would later claim an interception rate of over 70%. But independent satellite imagery analysis, seismic data, and footage from the ground painted a very different picture. The actual interception rate was likely somewhere between 45 and 55%. Hundreds of warheads reached their targets. But here is the part of this story that most analysis has not given enough weight to. What happened in the Persian Gulf while all of this was unfolding over Israel. Because in many ways, what happened in the Gulf is even more strategically significant than the missiles themselves, the USS Gerald R. Ford. The most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. A floating city of military power representing over $13 billion in hardware and nearly 5,000 personnel. The crown jewel of American naval dominance. When U.S. Central Command watched Iran execute a successful saturation strike against a country with some of the most advanced air defenses in the world, an immediate and deeply uncomfortable question arose in every American command center monitoring that situation. If Iran can do this to Israel, what can Iran do to us? The answer drove a decision that shocked observers around the world. The Ford Carrier Strike Group, along with multiple other surface combatants of the Fifth Fleet, began emergency repositioning. They turned south. They accelerated away from the Strait of Hormuz and deeper into the Arabian Sea. They left their forward positions they had maintained as symbols of American deterrence and commitment to the region. They left quickly, publicly, visibly. The Pentagon's official statement described it as a prudent repositioning to maintain operational flexibility. Behind closed doors, sources described something closer to genuine alarm. American planners understood the threat landscape clearly. Iran had pre-positioned mobile anti-ship ballistic missile launchers along its southern coastline. If Iran chose to escalate and target American carriers, the same saturation logic that had overwhelmed Israeli defenses could theoretically be applied to an Aegis-equipped carrier strike group. The Aegis combat system is extraordinary. But it was not designed to absorb 1,800 incoming missiles either. A Ford-class carrier is not just a ship, it is a symbol. For 70 years, the forward deployment of American aircraft carriers in contested waters has been the most tangible expression of American power, American commitment, and American deterrence. Allies in the Middle East have structured their security calculations around the assumption that if things go badly enough, those carriers will be there. The sight of those carriers turning south and running was not lost on anyone watching. Not in Tel Aviv, not in Riyadh, not in Abu Dhabi, and certainly not in Beijing or Moscow. Because here is the geopolitical reality that this night exposed. The United States still has the most powerful military in the world by virtually every conventional measure. That has not changed. What has changed is the calculation of what it costs to project that power into a high-threat environment against an adversary that has invested decades and enormous resources into making that projection as dangerous and expensive as possible. America's strategic deterrence in the Middle East has always rested on the assumption that the cost of challenging it would be prohibitive. That night, Iran demonstrated that the cost of maintaining it might also be prohibitive. China has been watching this very carefully. China's entire anti-access, area denial strategy in the Western Pacific is built on the exact same logic that Iran just validated in the Persian Gulf. Overwhelm sophisticated defenses with numbers. Make the cost of projecting power so high that the projector blinks first. What Iran did to Israel's air defense network with 1,800 ballistic missiles is precisely what Chinese military planners have been modeling against American carrier strike groups in the Taiwan Strait for years. This event did not just happen in the Middle East. It sent a ripple through every strategic wargame happening in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and Brussels. Russia, already deeply embedded in a grinding conventional war in Ukraine, watched Iran's successful execution of a mass ballistic missile operation with considerable interest. The saturation doctrine, the idea of overwhelming defensive capacity through volume rather than precision alone, reinforces everything Moscow has been learning about modern warfare on its own terms. The integration of Iranian drone technology that Russia has been using in Ukraine was only the first chapter of a much longer strategic relationship. The second chapter may involve ballistic missile doctrine. For Israel, the immediate consequence is a strategic reckoning of enormous proportions. The entire philosophy of Israeli national defense has rested on the concept of the qualitative military edge, the idea that Israeli technological superiority would always compensate for the numerical and geographic disadvantages of being a small nation surrounded by adversaries. That philosophy is not dead, but it has been challenged in a way it never has been before. The Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow systems will need fundamental rethinking, not just restocking. Directed energy weapons, laser systems capable of engaging incoming threats at the speed of light and at fractions of the cost of kinetic interceptors, have been in development for years. They are now no longer a long-term aspiration. They are an urgent operational priority. The economic dimensions of what happened are also deeply significant. Any sustained military conflict or even prolonged tension in the Persian Gulf has immediate and cascading effects on global energy markets. Oil prices react to instability in that region with mathematical certainty. Inflationary pressure follows, and increasingly Gulf sovereign wealth funds, managing trillions of dollars in assets, are conducting their own quiet reassessments of what American security guarantees are actually worth in a world where American carriers retreat from Iranian missile range. Some of that capital will move, slowly at first, but it will move. What does all of this mean for the future? The era of warfare in which technological sophistication alone determined the outcome is over. It did not end dramatically or cleanly. It ended on a Tuesday morning at 2:41 a.m. when the U-800 missiles proved that quantity, properly coordinated, economically sustained, and technologically sufficient, can defeat quality. The arms race that follows from this night will not primarily be a race for more expensive and more sophisticated interceptors. It will be a race for volume, speed, economic sustainability, and new physics: lasers, hypersonics, autonomous swarms, AI-driven targeting. The battlefield of the 2030s is being designed right now, and the blueprints are being drawn from the lessons of this single night. Iran did not win a war. Israel still exists. America is still the world's dominant military power. But Iran demonstrated something that will reshape strategic thinking for a generation. It demonstrated that a determined regional power, through decades of patient investment in asymmetric capabilities, can force the most powerful military alliance in the world to flinch. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, almost everything, because deterrence is ultimately a psychological condition. And on that night, the psychology shifted in ways that cannot be easily reversed. The smoke has cleared over Israel, the carriers are repositioning in the Arabian Sea, and military planners in a dozen countries are sitting in rooms with maps and projections and budgets, asking themselves the same question: what do we build next, and how fast can we build it? The answer to that question will define the next chapter of global conflict, and whatever that chapter looks like, it begins here, with 1,800 missiles, and the night the world learned that the old rules no longer apply.